Hi there, this is the Kettering University Library, and this is part 3 in our 5-part series on how to evaluate sources. This video is going to focus on determining the accuracy of your source. So we're going to continue using an article that we used in the last 2 videos called Governing Autonomous Vehicles. And one of the first things we want to look at is whether the authors present evidence for what they're saying. So basically, are they telling you where they got their information? So we're going to click on References. And when we scroll down, there's a massive list of all the references that they use. So already off to a great start. And then another thing we want to look at is, do they have any tables or graphs or figures? And this one does have some. And it can be kind of helpful to look through. You can see different keywords that they've used and what they used when they searched for information themselves, definitions and examples. And then this chart is the risk type and how each country is dealing with it. So that's already a good start with information. And then when we look at the full article and come down into our introduction, we already see that they're quoting those sources from their reference list, which is great, especially in comparison to a regular website that's out there called MotorBiscuit, which would be fine for personal reading, but it's definitely not a scholarly resource for several reasons. But the first being that the page is covered in advertisements. Everywhere you go, there's another ad. So that's a pretty big red flag when you're looking at resources. But another thing that they did is each of the links that they provide are linking back to their own website. When we scroll through this article, we're not seeing them quoting any sources, and then we're not seeing at the bottom of the article, we don't see a reference list. We don't know where they got their information. Again, like when you hover over it, it's going back to MotorBiscuit itself. So totally fine for personal reading, definitely not a source of accuracy though. All right, so another thing that we want to do is compare our initial article against another similar article called Preparing a Nation for Autonomous Vehicles. And what we want to do is compare this article to our original article. And we want to see, did they come to the same conclusions? And when you scroll down to the conclusions in the article that you're going to compare against, it actually does talk about a lot of the same things, that there needs to be more of a framework for liability issues, security issues, safety, and policy needed. So that's already kind of confirming what we know from our first article. And when we go back to our original article, Governing Autonomous Vehicles, even in our abstract in this article, talks about the need for more policy, more safety precautions, including both privacy and cybersecurity, and safety for other vehicles, other drivers, etc. So we kind of have confirmation that we're on the right path. Something else to look at is whether or not the article is presenting any conflicting information or opposing information. And this article, it tells you some of its limitations right from the get-go, that there's limited country-specific literature regarding policy implications. And then it goes on to talk about different strategies that different countries are using. So it's providing a more well-rounded bit of information than if we only look at an article that only shows data from one specific locale. So for example, a lot of autonomous vehicle testing happens in states that don't have 4 seasons the way Michigan does. So if we're only depending on that, it's definitely going to skew our experience and our expectations for autonomous vehicles. We definitely don't want to generalize one research study to an entire world, an entire globe of autonomous vehicles. And then the last thing that we really want to look for is, does the conclusion match the data presented throughout? And in this article, definitely it does. So it talks about the different risks that are involved: liability, privacy, cybersecurity, undue industry influence, and then safety. And it covers all of those from a lot of different angles. And it really just points back to what they say in their abstract, that there needs to be more research and more policy put into place. This can definitely take time, but try not to skip it. It's pretty important when you're looking at evaluating your source and determining how valid it is and whether or not you want to use it in your own work. So that concludes video number 3 on accuracy, and I'll see you in video number 4 when we discuss objectivity.